So when it comes to politics, people are making a lot of decisions that are going to shape the way kids go to school. For example, one of the big things is one of the hot topic items or hot button items are vouchers. Should we give kids money to go to private schools or to go to the school that they choose to go to? Should we use tax dollars to give these kids different opportunities? Well, it sounds great in theory, but there's a lot of wrinkles that they need to iron out when it comes to that. Another thing that comes to those decisions is, should we do away with public education? Should they make it all private? Should they have no more private school? I mean, should they have no more public education? Should we give it to separate companies that can fund them? A lot of education, a lot of public education is going in that direction. For example, a school lunch. You may not know this, a lot of you may not know this, but a lot of public schools are going to prioritization of different companies that provide the school lunch. There's even companies in schools, like you may have heard of Subway or even McDonald's or different things that are in there. When you go to a football game or a basketball game or any kind of sporting event, there's signs for different companies. So a lot of, and you may not know, I mean, people may not notice these things, but a lot of public education has a lot to do with private funding and so forth. Another thing in education that's changing is technology. Technology is changing the way people read books, the way they take exams. I mean, everything is going to technology. And kids accept it with open arms. So a big part of the education, I think, in my opinion, say that technology is great. Some of the things that they're doing is, I know some of the schools are doing, they're going to, all the students take tests on computers. They get the results back right away. I know that some of your students, and you actually do the same exact thing. So there's a lot of pros and cons to that. For the most part, I like to think that there's more pros than cons. I can tell you that the district that I teach in has taken a huge step when it comes to technology. Every classroom in our district is what's called retrofitted with technology. For example, in my classroom, there's a video projector. There's obviously teacher computer. There's computer stations for students. There's something called a smart board. It's actually called a Mimeo board. And if you want to know about that, I can tell you more about that later. We have all kinds of multiple online resources to different websites, video, and so forth. So really, actually, there's a document camera as well. I mean, in Collier County Public Schools, the technology for a teacher, the access to technology or the usage of it is definitely there. Accountability. Accountability is another direction that public schools are going into. You probably heard of in our state it's called FCAT. Every single state in the country has a different test, a state test that the student has to pass in order to graduate. In our school it's called the FCAT, Florida Comprehension and so forth exams. So if this student does not pass this exam, then they can't graduate. And for the most part, that's in all the 50 states, that's what they're doing. And the reason that came is because there was something called the No Child Left Behind Act. That started in 2001, which was from George W. Bush and his policy. And whether you agree with that state testing thing or not, that's not going anywhere. In fact, accountability in public schools is getting even bigger. They want more research behind it. They want, for the most part, and in theory it's a great idea. Like I said, education is a theory. In theory it's a great idea. That means if you can pass this high stakes test, then that means that you've really learned. Well, that's great in theory, but the problem is that a lot of public schools are teaching the test. So they're going away from regular academic requirements or curriculum requirements from the test. For example, let's say I teach history. Well, there's a lot involved with history, but the school is teaching reading and writing when it comes to history. So they take time away from the curriculum to teach, how to write a paragraph and so forth. So accountability, like I said, has pros and cons. Decentralization, this is a real big thing now. And it's happening in different states. It's already happened in some states. They're taking the power away from unions. They're taking, like, every state has a union for the most part. A lot of organizations, a lot of businesses have their own union, their voice. Or in Florida, where I'm at, they're voting on, they already passed one of the bills, and it continues to go, and by the time it's done, the thing is that they're going to take away the power from the union. And there's a lot of people that don't like union, but for the most part, as a teacher, I can tell you what the union does on our behalf is it gives teachers a voice. It bands them together, and it makes sure that when someone gets fired or something happens in the classroom or within the school, they have their, what is it called? Their due process, or whatever rights they have. They just make sure that they're following the contract. And they're experts on the teacher contract. So like I said, for the most part, and there's already some states that have already disbanded their union, and there's bills out there that prevent the teachers from having unions. So forth. Demographics. Demographics is a really big thing when it comes to public education. As you know, the demographics of schools are changing. I literally said that, like, when it comes to Latinos, that they're going to, by 2050, they'll be the majority. And I don't know if they're on the queue for that, but so it's changing. We continue to get more and more students from different countries. And that's going to change the curriculum. That's going to change the needs and wants from each student and your school. Before I continue, is there any questions that you may have on any of these things? On any of these topics? Maybe you may have a question in regards to your state. I know there's a couple teachers in here from California that may be able to answer that, and there's some students. So, actually, I have a question for you. Actually, what school did you attend, public or private? Did you attend public? You see your hands. Okay. Private? Two of you. So you have two different choices. And my question to you is in regards to of these things that I discussed, which do you think is the most important when it comes to education? Not just public education, public or private education. Those choices were like accountability, for example, high stakes testing, technology in education. Go ahead.
I think demographics was one of the most important issues because since I don't come from US, for me the most important factor was in deciding which school to attend is whether there are other people who are not only from America but from the rest of the world. So I can be exposed to their systems of education based on how they think, based on how they participate in class. So I think that the more diverse the classes in US will become, people will be able to integrate the knowledge that they get from history, for example, or from, I don't know, cultural studies, whatever they're called in different schools. So they will be more enriched. Because you know how there's a stereotype, a stupid stereotype about American people not necessarily knowing a lot about the rest of the world. Well, there's a reason for that. You can't just hold them responsible for it. So just do something and help. And I think demographic factor is going to play a major role, especially if the teachers are also going to be diverse, coming from different countries and not only the US. Because it will bring the different types of education to America. Because American education is absolutely different from, for example, education in Europe or in Asia.
That's a good thing. You know, actually, since you bring that up as far as demographics, that's going to happen. There's no choice. Like, there's no voting in that. But it's interesting what you say in regards to, like, you know, Europe and other countries that have education systems. There's proven theories out there. There's proven education. And I think I said earlier that in regards to there should be data-driven research. Well, I understand that people are different, but students are students. Kids are kids. I mean, no matter what part of the world you go,